Sup y'all, and welcome to the Political Organization of Space, Part 3. While federal systems tend to establish more geographically expressive regions within a state, in many cases, people grow dissatisfied with their present political situation. What will often result is devolution, which is the want for or actual movement of political power from the central government to regions within a state. So devolution can range from the desire for more regional power to the formation of internal divisions to the actual breakup of states. An example of the desire for more regional power was the Scottish independence referendum in 2014. There had been a long-standing national push to become independent, gain more local power, and keep the proceeds to the oil in the North Sea. However, with almost 85% of the adult population voting, the no side won with a 55% to 45% margin, which kept Scotland as part of the United Kingdom. Devolution can also mean the fragmentation of states into autonomous regions, and autonomous means self-ruling. Remember that some major causes for devolution include economic problems as well as ethnic separatism. In Italy, for example, the highly mountainous and industrialized South Tyrol region is almost two-thirds German-speaking, and is one of the most wealthiest regions in all of Italy. Their strong industrialized culture contrasted with many of the southern and more agricultural areas. As such, the majority of people in this region had never seen themselves as true Italians, so they pushed for more regional power. Since the 1990s, South Tyrol has been granted a considerable degree of autonomy. Similarly, this has happened in Canada, and specifically with the province of Quebec. Language is primarily at the heart of this situation. Most of Canada is English-speaking. However, Quebec is French-speaking. The French Canadians, the Québécois, have passed several laws protecting their language, such as requiring French to be taught in their schools and also requiring signs to be in French. Over time, this separate region has found itself culturally different as well, and in 1995, a referendum almost made Quebec completely independent and sovereign. In fact, the vote was 49.4% for and 50.6% against. In Belgium, language and religion has led to a cultural and political split. The North, or Flanders, speak Flemish, which is a dialect of Dutch, and their faith is primarily Protestant Christian. The South, or Wallonia, speak French, and they are mostly Catholics. Then, there is the Brussels Capital Region, which is officially a bilingual enclave. As such, most Belgians don't see themselves as Belgian, but rather Flemish or Walloons. Perhaps even someday, these two rather distinct regions may choose to separate. The Kingdom of Spain is integrated into 17 autonomous communities and even 2 autonomous cities. Each of these communities possess significant legislative and executive autonomy, with their own parliaments and regional governments. Of note, the Basque country considers itself its own nationality, with a language that is not related to any other European language and its own unique culture. Sometimes, militant separatist groups can form out of the desire for full independence, which is the case with ETA, an organization who has been responsible for political disruption and hundreds of deaths over the past several decades throughout Spain. Catalonia, on the far eastern part of Spain, is another autonomous region and hotspot for further devolutionary disruption. It is one of the richest regions in all of Spain, accounting for around 35% of all exports, and its capital, Barcelona, is the center of banking and commerce in Spain. Similarly to Scotland and Canada, a referendum for independence took place in 2011, and even though it ultimately failed, the push for full independence persists for many Catalonians. One less example of autonomous regions are Native American reservations within the United States, such as the Seminole tribe of Florida, who gained official independent status in 1957, and today comprises of 6 Indian reservations, such as Big Cypress, located south of Lake Okeechobee. Like other reservations, they reside within the United States, but have been granted significant autonomy. And these territories can be split even further, such as the case with the Miccosukee tribe located in Broward County, who received recognition in the 1960s. The final form of devolution occurs with the actual breakup of states and the formation of new states. This can occur quite peacefully in some instances, as was the case with Czechoslovakia, a state that existed within the Soviet bloc until communism began to wither away in 1990. In that year, due to popular demand, they held democratic elections and overwhelmingly voted to separate largely along ethno-linguistic lines and break into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. This was known as the Velvet Revolution or the Velvet Divorce because the transition was so smooth. However, this type of separation can, and often does, occur quite violently. We usually refer to this action as Balkanization, which is the fragmentation of a state into smaller states that are often hostile with one another. This term directly references the Balkan Peninsula region of southern Europe. Starting in the late 18th century, scores of conflicts and new states have formed out of a stretch of territory that was originally controlled by the Ottoman Turks. Most recently, once the Soviet Union began to collapse starting around 1990, former Yugoslavia began to devolve into several republics formed around fairly distinct ethno-cultural borders. This unfortunately led to a series of ethnic conflicts and even genocide within this failed state. We know that many forces can cause devolutionary pressure within a state, including geography. Looking at physical geography, for instance, fragmented countries with multiple and separate territories can find the spatial separation leading to cultural separation. This is an example of distance decay, where new cultural traits may emerge within separated communities, leading to less of a sense of their original cultural identity. This is the case with places such as the French island territory of Corsica, where there have been some separatist movements. And this has even occurred, albeit to a smaller extent, in the US state of Hawaii. Looking at the European map of devolutionary pressures in 2014, you can see most instances occurring along the periphery of these states, not the core. In other words, borderlands along the hinterlands are more likely to mix with neighboring states and regions, and see themselves less connected to the heartlands of their respective countries, and this may lead to devolution. And to finish off our investigation into devolution, we look at the word irredentism, which is the policy of a state wanting to annex territory from another state due to cultural links, such as ethnicity, history, nationality, or so on. The word was coined in Italy during the mid-1800s from the phrase Italia irredenta, meaning unredeemed Italy. This originally referred to the Austrian rule over territories mostly in northern Italian-dominated regions during a time of increased nationalism. Regions you see highlighted in green, namely Nice, Savoy, and Corsica, are lands claimed by modern Italian irredentists. And there are several other modern examples, such as Argentina's desire to regain the Falkland Islands, known to the Argentinians as Las Islas Malvinas. These islands have been under foreign influence for centuries, and most notably the British. This conflict has been long-standing and had even led to the Falklands War back in 1982. The People's Republic of China lays claim to many disputed territories, but the best known is Taiwan. China claims sovereignty over what they call Chinese Taipei. They consider it a runaway province, not an independent country. The region of Kashmir in northwestern India has been the issue of a territorial dispute between India and Pakistan since 1947. Kashmir remains divided into 3 parts, administered by India, Pakistan, and China, of course. The Jewish claim for Palestine as the Jewish homeland back in 1948 can be seen as an example of irredentism, as the claim was based on ancient ancestral inhabitants. And thousands of Palestinians claim the West Bank, as well as other territories, as their homeland today. And then there's Kurdistan, lying between Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria, numbering around 30 million people. The Kurds represent the largest stateless nation in terms of population and area. Russia has exerted its influence along its borders, and even sent troops into the Ukraine, claiming the Crimea as their own territory since an election they conducted in 2014. While there are significant populations of ethnic Russians in the Crimea, the annexation has been widely disputed by Ukraine and a majority of the international community as being illegal. So, in sum, all these examples of devolution tell us that multinational states, especially, may find their boundaries less secure in a world of rising nationalism.
That is correct.